Elbow Grease Productions, in association with MichaelJacksonInsider.com, presents
referring to everything that they've been doing in this case.
Okay, so but did you hear what he was saying?
I heard what Mr. Putnam saying, and
what was he saying that you responded to?
I'm not responding to that.
Okay, but
What was he saying? Tell me. You heard it.
didn't you?
Yes, but you tell me. You were right next to him.
I wasn't. I
And
wasn't.
he's talking about,
I wasn't
and
where you
was he
were.
talking about Mr. Earth? What was he talking about? Tell me.
That was my privileged conversation with him.
Well, if you don't want to tell me, I don't think I should.
No, but you said you heard him though.
I did hear him.
Okay.
I don't choose
So
to
that I was
just
just
pick
asking.
that.
I was just asking about your response to what you heard.
I responded there. You heard my response.
Well, one comment he made that I noted, I think, to you, he says, I think he's just afraid of the truth.
He did say that I'm afraid of the truth, and my clients are afraid of the truth. And my response is, well, where's Mr. Anschutz? He knows the truth. He was involved in all of this. He wanted to meet Michael Jackson before he would agree to put out $35 million. There was a meeting. He discussed everything with Michael Jackson, including leading him on that they wanted to make movies when in fact they didn't with Michael Jackson. All they wanted to do was make as much money as they could off Michael Jackson. And they'd come here to court and ask questions of an anonymous. Did you consider that he was acquitted, that he was charged with molestation? Not that he was acquitted, that he was charged. Did you consider that he held his child? That would in some way affect the sales of tickets when in fact it's a record selling at the O2. No artist had ever sold out the O2 or any concert at that time. So why would they now come back and bring up those incidents when in fact they had no problem with it when they signed a contract in advance $35 million? Why would they do that now?
And so you believe they would have no bearing at all in filling those statements?
Absolutely not. And they didn't have any problem. At the O2 and AEG had internal emails that said they were going to go to India. They were going to go on a worldwide tour. Yet now, emails speak the truth usually, but when the AEG witnesses come here, they remember nothing. You saw them. It's been a long time since they testified, but it was clear that they were severely impeached. They had no memory. It was a lawyer-created defense by Mr. Putnam and his law firm. Shortly after the lawsuit was filed, we will establish that Mr. Putnam met with Frank DeLeo and Mr. Gongor and Mr. Phillips when Mr. DeLeo was supposedly had been Mr. Jackson's manager, was having private meetings with Mr. Putnam, the lawyer for AEG, who was representing later Mr. DeLeo's family, and sent an email that said there was no computer and no documents when we proved that was false. And his client was held in contempt of court in Ohio.
Can we talk about what happened today? Yeah,
I've already answered those questions.
With regard to Earp's estimate, and the fact that they were essentially trying to rip it apart, saying it was like 10 times more than anything Michael had ever
First
in
of
his
all,
lifetime.
Michael Jackson had not toured since 1997. Michael Jackson's demand of his tickets was unprecedented. Michael Jackson had the largest selling albums in the history of the world. Now we are in 2009, and the ticket sales at the O2 speak for themselves. They had no problem holding all of that money. They had no problem wanting to do a world tour. They had no problem extending the shows from 30 to 50 and pressuring Mr. Jackson to do that. Yet now they want to say, oh, he would have never sold any more tickets. He would have never gone to another tour, contrary to everything they wrote internally to each other. So, we got a long way to go, and what lawyers say is not evidence. It's what the jury's been hearing in this trial. And I think the AEG witnesses, I sure hope they come back. Because I got some more questions to ask of these people. I sure hope Mr. Anschutz has the courage to come to Los Angeles, where he's making billions of dollars off the people here in the city, and talk about what he knew, how they called Michael Jackson a freak, how they had no respect for Michael Jackson and his family, and they continue to show AEG has no respect for Mrs. Jackson and Michael Jackson's children.
What were you referring to in the hall before the yelling happened about Mr. Anschutz and the lawsuit?
Oh no, I was saying that Mr. Anschutz has been involved in plenty of lawsuits, and they wanted to bring out that Michael Jackson was a lawsuit. What does that have to do with this case? That was my question. We're not bringing that into this case because it doesn't have anything to do with this case. Yet they want to say somebody sued Michael Jackson. Should we come in and say Mr. Ocean was sued? Staples Center's been sued numerous times? AEG's been sued? No, because that doesn't have anything to do with this case. The case says, did AEG hire Dr. Murray, which Mr. Phillips admitted shortly after it occurred? Were they negligent in supervising and retaining Dr. Murray? It seems pretty obvious. And what are the losses that occurred as a result of that? That's what the case is about. It's not about if somebody alleged something against Mr. Jackson or Mr. Anschutz did this or that. It doesn't have anything to do with the case, but they want to get into that. They want to get into, for example, did Taj Jackson write a text message, or excuse me, a Twitter where he criticized Grace Ruamba? Now, they looked through 4 years of text messages and found that when it turns out it was Nancy Grace. Again, they were trying to mislead the jury. But they spent time with all their lawyers to go through that, but they couldn't spend 20 seconds to check out Dr. Murray. What does that tell you? They have the resources, they have the ability. When they want to do it, they can easily do it. But when they want to make money off of Mr. Jackson, they chose not to do anything. So that's where we are. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Like you knew what we were talking about, then when I asked him what it was, you didn't know it did. Hey, man.
Hi.
So you wanted to ask me something. I'll do whatever you like. You okay?
I'm okay. I'm good.
Right over here.
Good.
Where do you want me, sir?
Right over here.
Okay.
We need your back towards
There you
the
go.
dark back.
Whatever you need. I got it.
That's fine.
Let's talk a little bit about this morning's testimony. We saw a different side of Argumen's calculations.
Yeah, I think. Well, you saw another side because you saw that they were based on that. I mean, I think what you're seeing in plaintiff's reaction is after 12 weeks, they've been doing this for 12 weeks. You're watching what was a claim that was on a bare thread now go up in smoke. It has absolutely no basis in either fact or law, and that's what we saw a lot of this morning. I think that's why you're seeing the extreme reaction by plaintiff's counsel, the yelling and whatnot, because he's obviously frustrated by the fact that he's now done this for 4 months. And we're at the end of his case, and he's no further along in proof than he was in the beginning. For example, this morning this was about supposed damages. There's not a person who follows the Jacksons remotely who isn't aware of the fact that Mr. Jackson was nearly $500 million in debt at the time of his death, and that his spending habits and everything else were such that for them to come out and have the figures that they're claiming of damages are just utterly absurd. And that's what this morning's testimony was showing. First off, they had the various filings that they had saying that it was a claim for over $40 billion, as we all saw at the beginning of this case. It's now 4 months later, and they're putting forward that now they're only claiming $1.5 billion. Now, of course, when they went to do that with their supposed expert, they did so with absolutely none of the things underlying what his supposed claims were. And so what we were going through this morning is to go through what he says those claims are based on. And I think what it showed was that he's not an expert. He's never done a tour. He hasn't any of the numbers right. His bases were things that he pulled from Wikipedia that were incorrect, as have been shown, or things that were taken from the internet that show it's not true. He has Michael Jackson performing in a 120,000-person stadium that is closed to rock concerts. We can go through the entire list. What it was a creation and a fabrication that was presented to the jury as an idea of what Mr. Jackson would have made, which was more than he made in his lifetime, that he was going to suddenly make now. Go out on a series of tours that he had never done, perform more in this tour than he had either said he would do or he had ever done in his prior 3 concert tours. And all of that is now coming across in cross. And so the jury is seeing the utter fabrication of the case. And I think that it's only an appropriate way to end their case as we start to get to our own. Because it's showing that what they've been hearing for 4 months is ridiculous. And luckily now we're going to be able to start to show them what actually occurred here. And make no doubt about it, what occurred here was an absolute tragic loss. And there's no doubt about that, but it's a loss for which AEGLive got.
What's your idea of how much money Michael Jackson made?
Well, you know what? We have an expert who's going to come in and talk about that. And they will be numbers that are based actually on what the tour was going to be, as opposed to this fabrication that they just presented. What will nonetheless remain an issue, and that's one thing the experts will talk about, is the idea that he was going to have to real trouble with the fact that he was $500 million in debt. I mean, servicing that debt is just it's astronomical for nations, let alone for a single individual. So we'll have to see what our expert comes up with ultimately in terms of that. So not even so much what he would make on the tour, which they're definitely going to give a figure, but then how do you then service the massive debt? Because you know, at the time of his death, as came out today, he was really at the brink of losing everything. Havenhurst, the home he allowed his mom to live in, was on the verge of bankruptcy and foreclosure. It was about to be foreclosed. And he had no ability to get any more money from banks or otherwise. And those are things that have to go into any damages analysis. And that's one of the things that we're now seeing from actual experts who will be coming, as opposed to this person who's, an accountant. And he's not an expert on things that are important. And they try to claim that he was an expert on touring, on merchandising, on endorsements. He then went on to admit, as you now stated, that he's never done any of those things. And the reason they have an expert who has no basis for his opinion is because they couldn't find an expert who would give them the testimony they wanted, so they had to make one up with his account.
So do you know a ballpark of how much money Michael Jackson would have made without counting all of that?
I don't. As we sit here, our experts are doing that. I'm sure they have a place. If you ask me tomorrow, I'll tell you. I'll ask them.
Mr. Panish seems to be very serious about
Well, what you saw him do today is what you see him do every time they have a really bad day in court. Every time they have a bad day in court where suddenly their witness shows that what they're saying is absolutely not true, he goes out and tries to attack somebody else. It's a little bit the hide the ball game. You have a terrible day in court, so you come out and talk about something hideous that happened somewhere else in the hopes that no one will notice that you had a really bad day in court. So after,
You feel you had a bad day in court?
Yeah, that was what we were just talking about. Yeah, they had a miserable day in court because it was shown that their expert wasn't an expert, and that he based his numbers on sheer fabrications. And so as a result of that, he comes out on the side and wants to talk to people, and wants to talk about something else other than what happened in court. Is what happened in court. So he came out and said, once again, trying to attack the financials, trying to say, he should be here, he knows the truth. The court has now ruled 3 times that there's absolutely no basis for bringing him here because he has nothing to do with this. And everyone knows that, including Mr. Panish. He's only saying it because he would like people to focus on something other than the fact that his damages expert was neither an expert nor had any evidence.
Now, granted, AEG didn't say we're going to get you the show. There were some sort of indications that seemed to the emails that, like Ms. Strong had said, that there was some hopes.
Yeah,
Potentially it would have gone worldwide, gone around.
Oh, there's absolutely. What do you do? Let's be curious about what it actually does and what actually occurred here. It's terribly important. If you look at Mr. Jackson's towards at the height of his fame, 2009 was not the height of Michael Jackson's fame. It was about 25 years after his fame. At the height of his fame, you saw it was shown today. He was giving worldwide tours on 70 shows, 80 shows. That was the extent of it. What happened in 2009 was we announced a very limited show, if you recall, the actual facts here, which is we announced that we were going to have a show, one tour in London. That was what was announced, and it was called This Is It, meaning in London, this show is it. This is it. This is the last thing he's ever going to do. As a result of this being his final performance ever to be at the O2 in London, there was enormous response, understandably, and therefore we sold 15 shows.
sold out in 2 hours.
And it did. It was incredible.
Record.
No, great record. I absolutely agree. No, what happens, however, if you look at all of the contracts and the way contracts work, is when you're negotiating a contract, you negotiate for should something be continued. You don't put yourself in a position where you renegotiate language for continuations of things. So if you look at the actual contract, if you look at it, what the actual contract says is, hi, we're agreeing to this number of shows. I'll produce going to be 50 shows. And were it to continue thereafter, were it to go worldwide or otherwise, there are ways that you're going to do that, and that's what follows the contract. You saw it in Kenny Ortega's contract. Kenny Ortega's contract talked about him working on just the This Is It show for London, but then said, should it go to other venues, this is what will happen. That's what all contracts do. They contemplate the idea. Now, that said, there's absolutely no question if you talk about AEGLive, were it to have continued, were Mr. Jackson to do something he had never done before in his life, and decided at the end of the 50 shows in London he wanted to go wider, there's no question, as the AEGLive people have said, they would love to have done that with them.
Is it only 2 hours?
Yeah.
If tour was meant it would be the ending of his tour, he was going to go into other things later, and so therefore you would still have that hype behind it.
I don't think the facts show that. I think that people have the hope that that may happen. And the reason facts don't support it is because Mr. Jackson has said to a number of people, and you've seen them saying this here on his video, there's a number of people that Mr. Jackson wanted to end this after live. That was one of the 50 shows, that he did not like touring, that he didn't like performing live, and therefore this was going to be it. So there's a lot of actual testimony from people as opposed to this fiction that they tried to use out as a supposed expert as to what Mr. Jackson actually contemplated. That said, if Mr. Jackson...
You said 35 too.
Right, exactly. So one could say what the change could be, and there was certainly hope that he would continue thereafter. What there isn't is any factual evidence to support that. That's just absolute
I'll get back.
Okay, I'll get back.
All right, I've got one more question
Please.
for you. Mr. Panish, when he was out here earlier, had made a comment with regard to, AEG looks into all of these things, and spends all this time looking into this and that, and the other thing, we could spend 20 seconds doing background check on Dr. Conrad.
White shots was shown by actual. By the way, I'd like to note that sort of comment is exactly the comment I'm talking about, which is they come out and try to say something other than what occurred in the courtroom on the day that a bad day or what occurs to them, and their damage just blew up on the stage. Did horribly, showed that he had nothing to base his facts on. So Mr. Panish comes out and talks about an expert that appeared 4 weeks ago in the hopes that people will focus on that instead. And even then, he gets it wrong. What occurred, if you recall, from their own expert, remember, we haven't put on our expert, but for their own expert, is in the industry, one does not do financial background checks on people who are not going to be dealing with financial information. That is not what we do in this country. That is not what we do in the state. An employer has absolutely no right, which is why the laws, both federal and state, say it, to go out and do all kinds of background checks on you without you giving permission to do so, and for there to be a rightful reason. That is why, if you look at the stats that show it, there's a very limited number of people for whom you do background checks, and even a more limited number for whom you do financial background checks. And you do financial background checks for people who have new financial matters. So, for example, if someone's going to deal with your money, whether it be a bank or someone else, then one might do a financial background check to make sure they're not going to mess with your money. What one doesn't do is those kind of checks on everybody that works for them. And certainly that was not the case here. Now, if Mr. Jackson wanted to do a background check on his doctor, that is for Mr. Jackson to decide. So let's not forget the situation here. Mr. Jackson chose Dr. Conrad Murray to be his doctor 3 years before anyone had ever heard of him. He had been his family doctor for 3 years. He came in and asked AEG if they would forward the money during the tour to his doctor for his services, as he did with everyone else. That would not cause AEG to suddenly say, you know what, Mr. Jackson, I'll do this, but first I want to do a background check on your doctor. The reason for that is AEG has absolutely no right to determine who Mr. Jackson's doctor is. That was for Mr. Jackson, and he did so.
Was AEG forwarding money as they said they would do, or were there restrictions on it?
As also the evidence has shown, the only person who ever paid Dr. Conrad Murray was Michael Jackson. There was never any monies paid to Dr. Conrad Murray by AEGLive.
So AEG was, in fact, denying Michael Jackson the money that they said they would forward to pay for the doctor as well as others?
No, what we said was this. We said that if it was ever agreed, remember there's that agreement that was being negotiated? If Michael Jackson ever agreed to that, we would then pay.
Your soundbite seemed to be stating that AEG only agreed to advance Michael Jackson the money for Conrad Murray.
Right,
so if they agreed to do that, did they actually follow through, or did they deny him?
He died.
He died. We agreed to it once Mr. Jackson signed the agreement, saying that he wanted us to do that. What happened was he asked us if we would do it, and we said we would do it. And then we said, okay, you got to have an agreement where this all works, where you say that that's what you want. And then if you do that, then we will advance the money. Since that never happened, no monies were ever advanced. All right?
Are you saying it's against the law for people to do background checks on just everybody?
Different types are against the law. It depends on where, both federal and state. And the reason is, for obvious reasons, just because you work for someone, it doesn't give an employer the right to look into your background.
I wish you would tell them that to some of my employers. They regularly give background checks to everybody.
That's not okay. What do you do for a living?
Well, I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher, and I'm also in the media.
Sometimes media will never do that. So
right. I'm talking about as a teacher.
Sometimes you're welcome. Sometimes teachers, they'll do it because it's care of children.
Okay.
Sometimes. It depends on the school.
And yeah, there's other.
All right. Nice to see you.
All right.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
To get what you need.
Thousands believed Tupac did it. Millions believed Elvis did it. But did Michael Jackson really do it? E-movie book, Pseudocide, Did Michael Jackson Fake His Death to Save His Life? By author Pearl Jr. It's the most shocking true story of our lifetime. Order yours today. Go to michaeljacksonpseudocide.com. That's michaeljacksonpseudocide.com.
It was clear that they were severely impeached. They had no memory. It was a lawyer-created defense by Mr. Putnam and his law firm. Shortly after the lawsuit was filed, we will establish that Mr. Putnam met with Frank DeLeo and Mr. Gongor and Mr. Phillips when Mr. DeLeo was supposedly had been Mr. Jackson's manager, was having private meetings with Mr. Putnam, the lawyer for AEG, who was representing later Mr. DeLeo's family, and sent an email that said there was no computer and no documents when we approved that was false. And his client was held in contempt of court in Ohio.
Can we talk about what happened today? Yeah,
I've already answered this question.
No, you have in regard to Earp's estimate, in fact, they were essentially trying to rip it apart, saying it was
Heard my response.
Well, one comment he made that I noted, I think, to you, he says, I think he's just afraid of the truth.
He did say that I'm afraid of the truth, and my clients are afraid of the truth. And my response is, well, where's Mr. Anschutz? He knows the truth. He was involved in all of this. He wanted to meet Michael Jackson before he would agree to put out $35 million. There was a meeting. He discussed everything with Michael Jackson, including leading him on that they wanted to make movies when in fact they didn't with Michael Jackson. All they wanted to do was make as much money as they could off Michael Jackson. And they'd come here to court and ask questions of an anonymous. Did you consider that he was acquitted, that he was charged with molestation? Not that he was acquitted, that he was charged. Did you consider that he held his child? That would in some way affect the sales of tickets when in fact it's a record selling at the O2. No artist had ever sold out the O2 or any concert at that time. So why would they now come back and bring up those incidents when in fact they had no problem with it when they signed a contract and advanced $35 million? Why would they do that now?
And so you believe they would have no bearing at all in filling those stadiums?
Absolutely not. And they didn't have any problem at the O2, and AEG had internal emails that said they were going to go to India. They were going to go on a worldwide tour, yet now, you know, emails speak the truth usually, but when the AEG witnesses come here, they remember nothing. You saw them. It's been a long time since they testified, but it was
Elbow Grease Productions in association with MichaelJacksonInsider.com presents
referring to everything that they've been doing in this case.
Okay, so but did you hear what he was saying?
I heard what Mr. Putnam saying, and
And what was he saying that you responded to?
I'm not responding to that.
Okay, but
What was he saying? Tell me. You heard it.
it was you?
Yes, but you tell me. You were right next to him.
I wasn't. I
And
was.
he was talking about,
I was
and
next where
he
you
was
were.
talking about Mr. Earth. What was he talking about? Tell me.
That was my privileged conversation with him.
Well, if you don't want to tell me, I don't think I should.
Well, but
tell
you said you heard him though.
I did hear.
Okay.
But I don't choose
So
to
that I was just
pick
asking.
that.
I was just asking about your response to what you heard.
I responded there.